Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg, and welcome to It's Okay to Be Old, a show about all things aging well. Well, Dr. Tracey Offerdahl has been a pharmacist and professor of pharmacology and therapeutics for over 30 years. She's dedicated her career to educating healthcare professionals and helping patients better understand medications, nutrition, and their overall health. She believes that aging is a gift and that true wellness begins by taking ownership of your own health so you can live better, longer, and with more vitality. Welcome, Tracey.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I always like to make the disclosure of how we met. I went to a conference called Be Well in New York, and Tracy's headline was "How to Heal from the Cellular Level Out," something like that. You'll
Yeah.
put that up for me. But so tell us your story.
So I come from traditional Western medicine in my education, my training. That's what we're used to here. And I always say, though, starting out, I am a pharmacist by trade and I got my doctorate and then I did a residency. So I'm very ingrained in that type of thinking. But I always sort of teasingly say, tongue in cheek, that I really am the most anti-drug pharmacist that there probably is. And I say that simply because in America, the United States, we do many things really, really well, including some of our medical models, for emergency care, trauma care, and there are many others. But the problem is we have a problem. We want to give everybody a medication for it. And we're incredibly blessed that we have so many medications and remedies to fix things. But for thousands and thousands and thousands, however many thousands of years, people all over the world have used other ways to fix things. So, my personal journey, in short, is that as a young girl, young teenager, I was fantastic at starving myself.
Oh,
And unfortunately, that's just, I thought, well, I eat less, then I'll be as skinny as possible. And it's just such a terrible way of thinking. And it's something I still struggle with to this day. But thankfully, I have a much more educated and, whole perspective, I guess, on diet. So I ended up with autoimmune disease. My first bout with it was Hashimoto's after I was pregnant with my first daughter, had my thyroid completely removed, and then I ended up with rheumatoid arthritis and lupus.
mm.
And unfortunately, I was on a lot of medication, gained 65 pounds. I looked terrible. I felt terrible. So being on an infusion every 6 weeks, plus methotrexate and Plaquenil, I just decided after about 12 years of it, I was done. I couldn't exercise and I just was in really bad shape. So I didn't even let my rheumatologist know that my plan was to get off everything. And I really just decided I've got to use a different model. Found functional medicine practitioners and worked with them. And through diet and nutrition and supplementation and just looking at our bodies as the miracles of microengineering that they are, I was able to get off all my medication. And at 56, I feel better and look better than I did at 26.
You look amazing. I want
Thank
to
you.
ask you, we're veering off just a quick second.
Sure.
So you essentially hid the fact that you were going to take this path from your conventional colleagues and your doctors. So that's interesting because do you feel it's is still stigmatized to go to alternative practitioners?
Sure.
Yeah.
I live outside Philadelphia, I think you mentioned, and the Northeast, I think, is a little bit of a desert wasteland compared to other places in the United States. In the South, particularly Florida and California, where you are, there are many more holistic and functional practitioners. And I sort of use the terms interchangeably, although some people may take issue with that. But, functional just means looking for the root cause.
Right.
Why do we not look for the root cause? Maybe still taking the path of traditional Western medication, but maybe not, and trying to figure out why somebody has reflux constantly instead of just giving them a proton pump inhibitor that inhibits nutrient absorption, et cetera. My physician was fantastic, is a fantastic physician, but he's trained in Western medicine. So I did really well for many years with him. And once I got off everything, he finally knew what I was doing when I said I'm no longer coming for my infusion. He was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend people do that. It was just, it's part of my training, so I was able to do it on my own. And he said, "I don't know exactly what you're doing, but keep doing it."
Okay. Okay. And the I think the thing is that the reason it's regarded as hokey is all the terminology. The,
Sure.
there's a learning curve from taking Western medicine. I also had very conventional training in my nutrition, and it was the land of woo woo and the fruits and nuts. That
Yeah.
still kind of sticks with us. That it's
Yes.
considered not just not real medicine, but the people practicing it are not knowledgeable. That's been the problem with this. Tracey, you live on a farm in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. So you have the best of both worlds. I want to ask you, is it true that our food supply really isn't what it used to be from a purity standpoint?
Yes, oh, absolutely. And also just from a basic nutritional standpoint, when you think of farmers markets, they're wonderful. And probably in California, you have them year round.
Oh
Here in
yeah,
the
yeah.
Northeast,
Mhm.
yeah, we just are not fortunate enough to have them year round or great access to them year round. So you end up getting oranges from someplace else in the United States or even outside the country that were picked 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. Same with bananas and really the fresh fruits, et cetera. That's the biggest problem. So they're nutrient deficient. I read someplace, and I wish I could tell you exactly where, but that an orange from today is probably it would take about 21 of them to be as nutrient fulfilled as what we would see, 25, 30 years ago. So that's kind of the basic
Yeah.
problem with it. And then
So
even
then
our
that
soil.
kind of falls in line with just being a girl in the United States. We all did terrible things to our bodies as teenagers and so forth. But now we're finding that we need to eat more than we
Yes.
thought to be healthy. And I'm preaching to the choir. I know as you age, it's healthier to have that extra 10 or 15 pounds on you across the board. The cardiologists call it the weight conundrum. They don't know why, but women with a little extra weight are actually living longer. I have to throw that in whenever I'm speaking
It's
and
true.
wherever I'm talking to someone, because having that, all of us living through those teen years of feeling horrible about ourselves because we weren't twiggy. We know now that it's actually good for you, but it's hard to change the mindset on it.
It is very
Um,
hard to change the mindset.
so you don't recommend eating 21 oranges at a serving,
No.
right? So what do we do with this? Because you talk extensively about how the human body continuously repairs itself, rebuilds itself, regenerates itself. So it's a remarkable machine considering what we do to it.
Oh, yes. I read somewhere here not too long ago that we have to think of our bodies of, working from the inside out, what we see on the outside. And this is the lecture that you attended where we
Yes.
met. Everything that's happening on the inside has a job.
Yeah.
And it's why we don't want to just eat spinach when we're going to eat fruits and vegetables, because we need more than just the leafy greens. We need more than just the orange, the citrus, etc. And what this person said, and I believe it was some sort of editorial, but he
Okay.
likened the human body to a symphony. And, everything when a symphony is playing works in harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has an exact job. It's precise and it sounds like beautiful music when everything is doing exactly what it's supposed to. But when we interrupt those processes, either with being, too protein heavy and not enough of the fruits and vegetables, or, too many saturated fats or seed oils, or even using medication. Medications do the same thing.
Yeah.
It would be like the percussion section with cymbals clanging loudly in the background and trying to overshadow and take
Mhm.
over what the symphony is trying to do and work in harmony. And it was such a profound description. And that's really what we are. We as human beings, need to work as a giant chemical reaction, and that's what we are. So little teeny changes inside can be good or bad. And I also say too, our biology does not forgive. It really is a scary statement. But when you think, what does that mean? Our biology does not forgive. It means that our biology has a certain way that it wants to run things. We are created to be self-healing organisms. And unfortunately, so many things that we participate in willingly and unwillingly, all the exposures from the environment, et cetera, really has a profound impact on our ability to be self-healing. So all that being said, our biology can adapt over time, but it remembers. It remembers. And as we age, I think that's, one of the reasons, obviously, why we see so much dysfunction and disease, because it adds up over time. And it might be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, or your 80s. If we don't take ownership of our own bodies, what we put in them and on them, then at some point, the adaptation can no longer adapt. And that's when failure and dysfunction from a cellular level happens. And it's a shame. We really have a lot more control over our bodies and what happens to us than we really ever believed that we did.
Absolutely. And it's the amount of people walking around not feeling well and not knowing why
Yeah.
is just so terrible. Tracey, with all the difficulty to decipher information that's being thrown at us all day long, I keep saying if I had my druthers, I'd get offline altogether because, first of all, I'm attracted to the nutrition and wellness because it's what I do and I'm always
Yeah.
researching and it's making my head spin on a regular basis. Can you do a quick overview of just some of how the lifestyle choices influence cellular wellness? Nutrition,
Sure.
fitness, hormones, sleep, stress, all the usuals. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some components to health and wellness and strength and anti-aging, longevity, aging well, all of these things. And certainly exercise plays a large role. And I think we know as we age that, if we want to run distance and we want to run fast, there are some people that can do that and be healthy doing that and safe. But really, for the large majority of us, I've never really been a runner. I'm more of the strength training kind of person. But there's something called zone two exercise. That's a big buzzword now or buzz phrase. Just walking 150 minutes a week and getting your heart rate up, but not so much that you can't talk. That's an important thing. Doing strength training and resistance training. So that exercise component. Sleep is so important. And I'm fortunate to say that I sleep like an Olympic, like it's an Olympic sport.
Good for you. Good
I
for
do.
you.
I wake
Okay.
up very early. I do wake up very early, and probably some of that is cortisol. But I also live on a farm, so we
Hmm.
get up early, and I've always sort of been programmed that way. But I feel rested when I get up in the morning.
Hmm.
And then hormones, as people go through perimenopause and postmenopausal changes, things change. And hormones can be some of our biggest hidden stressors, as well as lack of sleep and all of that. And then certainly good nutrition. When nutrition isn't enough, I believe in supplementation, and there's a lot out there. I'm not a huge fan of cherry picking supplements. And
Okay.
yeah, and just because, especially from a pharmacist perspective, I have people coming in that are taking 17, 18, 19, 20 different supplements. How do you even sort through them? How do you know which ones are good? It's a hard question, one of which I don't have all the answers to. But if we can sort of pare that down, work on the diet a little bit more, and when that's not enough, good supplementation is certainly key.
So that's an interesting. Your patients that come in to your pharmacy, are they receptive to you saying, "Hey, let's pull this down to maybe a multi and just a couple of it"? Like, will they listen to you? Do you work with people
Yeah.
on that? Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
fortunate because I've been at the same place since 1990. So
Oh,
I've grown
wow.
up there.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't, I mean, I really always liked supplements and I was knowledgeable about them. But now I've grown, so deep into this as really my area of specialty, living well, aging well in particular, and
Mhm.
supplementation, et cetera. So they know that I'm the one to ask.
Yeah.
So, they'll come in at a time when I have a good amount of time and we sort through it. And not only does it save people money, but it improves their health and their basic well-being and how they feel on a daily basis.
So this is a whole nother conversation, and you will come back and we'll talk about this. But the antagonistic relationship with certain medications and supplements and eating. One of the biggies, just going to ask you one, is you can't eat grapefruit with statins. Let's say these. Tell me that mechanism because a lot of people say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. I'm going to do it anyway." Tell me how that interacts.
So it's an absolute food nutrient or drug nutrient interaction for sure. So grapefruit, very interestingly, whether it's grapefruit juice and certain other citrus fruits that we don't really eat in the United States, but what grapefruit does is it goes through the liver to get metabolized. And when it does that, it uses a certain type of enzyme called cytochrome P450 3A4/5, if you wanted to know the whole
Okay.
name.
I do want to know the details. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and so you have to think of this CYP 450 3A4/5 as a highway system to leave the liver and ultimately the body. Now, the problem with these highway systems, and there are others, there's CYP 450, 3A4/5, 2C19, there are a whole bunch. The issue is you can only have one thing leaving the body via that highway system at a time. So you could have one on 3A4, one at 2C19, one on 2D6, etc. Grapefruit needs that 3A4 highway system to leave the liver and ultimately the body.
Okay.
Statins also need that highway. So your body looks at it like, now I have two things that need to leave the body via the liver the same exact time. They're going to compete with each other,
Okay.
and one of them is going to win. And unfortunately, the grapefruit wins. And what it does is it decreases the excretion, the breakdown in excretion of the statin, and your statin levels rise, 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 rise. And instead of being nice and level, which is where we always want to be with medication, we call it medication steady state or concentration steady state, it looks like this.
Okay.
And when things go up into the air, that's when people get really sick and they can die from it.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I always thought it was just they did clinical trials and someone said they were bothered by it. And so they put it on the label as not able to have it.
Well, sometimes that happens. If somebody gets a hangnail while they're in a
Yeah.
clinical trial, that's
You
going
just
on the
got the
label.
Oscar of explaining this to people because
Well,
I love this. We're going to highlight this. This is absolutely amazing. So, what is your take on the non-prescription supplements that are huge right now? Collagen powder, creatine, and all the proprietary remedies of keeping you thin and young.
yes, very good question.
Yeah.
So I am a big creatine fan. I was a power lifter. I didn't compete, but I almost did many, many
Oh,
years ago. So
okay.
I've always been a creatine fan. I am of Norwegian heritage. I am a sturdy woman, and I love to lift heavy weights, 50-pound bales of hay included.
Mm,
So creatine is important for skeletal muscle, and not only just maintaining. And you mentioned, we know from evidence-based medicine that it's good to have a little 10, 15 pounds as we age. So that kind of plays into that. We also have a good amount of data now suggesting that a slightly higher dose of creatine is great for cognition. So I think we need to explore that further. But creatine, big fan. Just get it from, a decent company. Collagen peptides. I love collagen peptides from a infrastructure perspective, not only skin but also our connective tissue. And again, there are some good companies out there. So sometimes you get what you pay for with a few of these, but certainly anybody can reach out, for some specific recommendation.
yeah,
And
I think we'll do that because there's a million of them on the
yes.
shelf now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes. And then the last one you mentioned, sort of, all the things that keep us fit and healthy and thin. The group of that category is really called peptides. And there are so many different peptides out there. There are peptide drops, there are prescription peptides, of course, Ozempic, Wegovy, and all of those. I love peptides as a group. I think it's a fascinating area of medicine and remedies. There are a lot of them out there. Some do a really good job, and some do a really good job long term. Some do a really good job short term, and some can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Some are involved in longevity and anti-aging, and some are involved in more of the fitness competition, strength training competitions. But if we use those long term, ultimately they speed up aging and even the formation of cancerous cells. So it's a wide area of research, but
Yeah, and
there's a
people
lot
when
of
they get on that have to work closely with someone knowledgeable. So again, that circles back to me is trying to find a functional medicine practitioner that will monitor that. That's, blood
yes,
work and really, really paying attention to that. So
yes,
this I want to just talk for a second about that, which we hadn't discussed in the pre-interview and the GLP-1s, but what about this microdosing that someone wants to lose 10 pounds? Like, I would never do that. I feel that that would be really, really dangerous to play with. But if you have 40 or 50 pounds more to lose and you're in a disease state, obviously that's a very good choice. But someone who's 130 and wants to weigh 120, it seems ridiculous to me to do that.
Yeah, and I certainly can see both sides of the argument, and truly that I really can. So I think you explained it pretty well in that if somebody has more weight to lose and they're willing to maybe make the lifestyle modifications as well, I think they are important tools in the arsenal of medication. And I never really say, I love this drug
Yeah.
because, once again, they're sort of changing our symphony. We need them sometimes.
Hmm.
But all that being said, we have to really emphasize the change in diet and lifestyle from a holistic perspective because we are putting people taking these medications at full dose, mostly at the higher doses that we use from the pharmaceutical grade products that are available. They just go into starvation mode and lose skeletal muscle, and that adds a whole completely different level of risk as we age.
Right.
You have one fall, your chances of having another fall go up substantially, and your increase in morbidity and mortality is profound. So that's, kind of just worth mentioning there. But working with a dietitian and, like you said, a functional practitioner can make all the difference. These medications work on a system called incretin, and the power of improving our own internal incretin systems cannot be overstated. It is a profound improvement in functioning from the beginning, from the top of this system, that improves not only hyperglycemia and insulin resistance, but it can change their path to Alzheimer's disease and even Parkinson's
Yeah.
disease,
Yeah.
neurocognitive decline.
Hmm.
So, we have some wonderful things with these medications for sure. The dosing, I think that's an important discussion because we go from zero to 100, which is kind of the typical American way, right? Scorched earth. We go from like 0.25 milligrams, and then a week later we're saying to double it to zero point 0.5 as long as you're not throwing up. And then, a week later we're going to say go to 1 milligram and then to 2 milligrams. So you've gone from the lowest dose possible with some of these up to the maximum dose in a month.
Right.
And why?
Yeah.
The microdosing, I think, is going to play a huge role. It already is. Unfortunately, these doses, as you know, are not available from commercial products.
Right.
So that is always a battle in medicine with the FDA and pharmaceutical companies. But I think that we really have a lot to learn with microdosing, and I think that they're going to play a bigger role. Losing 5, 10 pounds, I don't think that that's absolutely what we should be focusing on.
Right.
But people can be metabolically unhealthy and be close to a normal body weight. So, it's what we used to call skinny fat. I
Yes.
hate that
Yes.
F
I
word,
hate the
but
term, but yes, I know what
yes.
you mean. Yes. Hmm.
So if we can get some people who just are metabolically unhealthy, even at close to a normal body weight with these medications, if they're refusing other ways of doing it, or maybe just to jumpstart them, I think that we might have something there. I do. I think we might have something there. So we'll
What
see.
about, we met at the Be Well conference, and I'm a conference junkie and I host conferences. I just love to sit and learn and listen to what people
Yeah.
have to say and, absorb it all in. And at some red light therapy, is the big thing now that everybody's doing. Talk to me about this red light therapy, massage therapy, colonics, things that are really poo pooed by mainstream medicine, but people are buying it and buying into it.
Oh, yes, for sure. So everything has a place. Some of this was thrown into the forefront, all of these different types of remedies. You mentioned red light therapy, colonics, sauna,
Yeah.
ice bath therapy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They all have a different role, and there's nothing that is inherently unsafe about them, other than, some colonics you have to be careful because we can absorb very well through our colon. So if people are using, really high caffeine levels, et cetera, in like a coffee colonic, we just have to pause there for a second and make sure it's safe for everybody. But do you remember in 2022 when Chris Hemsworth was doing that documentary, The
Oh
Marvel
yes, yeah,
Actor?
I watched. Yeah, very very thorough.
Yes. I mean, what about a profound change
Yes,
in how the entire world is observing someone who's famous, who just learned that they have the highest genetic risk for developing Alzheimer's disease
yes,
on camera, he
right.
learned. So he has thrown a lot of this into the mainstream media and just, the mainstream general population in general, because he said, okay, I know that my lifetime risk of developing Alzheimer's is huge, but I'm going to look at it in the opposite direction. And I'm going to say, I'm going to change and adapt and button down every single thing about my lifestyle that
Hmm.
I possibly can. And it includes red light therapy, and it includes exercise, and it includes sauna and ice baths and colonics and all of those
Right.
things. So can we get a little obsessed over all of this? Yes, but if we're going to be obsessed about something, why not be obsessed about aging well, realizing that aging is a gift, aging well is a gift, and really trying to make the little adjustments that the worst thing that happens is we spend some money on it and a little bit of time.
Exactly. It's funny you brought that up because I tell everybody I come in contact with, you must, and if nothing else, you need to watch the last episode, when he comes to terms with what it means to age. And so the whole package, if you can't do everything all the time, I always say just a little bit helps, just something towards the wellness. Any thoughts, Dr. Offerdale, on skincare claims, vitamin C, retinol, the creams? I do it all. I put vitamin C on in the morning and retinol at night and tons of moisturizer and sunscreen. I will, just as an aside, never ever, when I'm 65 and my mother wouldn't let us lay out in the sun. My nobody
Smart.
listened to her, but I did, and I'm glad I did. But now I am following that protocol of trying to get some sunlight every day in the morning when I get up, go out, circle the backyard. But these creams are the claims is the are miraculous, whether they're really,
Yes.
yeah,
And that's the thing is, if something does sound probably too good to be true, it doesn't mean it's not helping. It just may not be the miracle cure we're looking
right,
for. I do all this stuff as well. I am very natural in my way of thinking. I haven't gone the Botox route or anything like that. Not that I have a problem with it. I
right.
always say you do what makes you happy and et cetera. But I will say I do the vitamin C, I do the retinol, that cell turnover, new skin, that has been proven time and time again. Getting out and getting some sunlight is absolutely important. And, the fact that we do wear sunscreen, which I also think is important, just I tend to not wear the ones that have 17 chemicals. I really try to
Right.
stick to, I'm the mime on the beach,
Yeah.
with the mineral sunscreen. So, all that being said, again, it went to that place where you and I met, inside out, beauty, wellness, strength. If our cells are shrunken and dehydrated, then our skin on the outside will look the same way no matter what we smear on it.
Right.
So, it's making sure that we're drinking enough water, that we're getting some mineral salt, to hydrate every cell. But yeah, there are some great creams out there, including the vitamin C. I love the retinol. I use tallow. I don't
Oh, you
make my
do?
own
Okay.
tallow. Yeah, I really love tallow. And there are some out there that, have some essential oils in them, so they smell nice. But so you moisturize and then seal in the moisture. And that's what
Okay.
like tallow or, some of those greasier things do.
Yeah.
But yeah, they help.
Is the petroleum jelly harmful to be on your face? That's the new.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I've done that forever and ever.
Yeah, because the irony is that they'll say don't put petroleum near your mouth, and meanwhile it's in all the lipsticks, all the
Yes.
creams, and all the chapsticks, and so yeah. So this is a little bit really the question here is there such thing as anti-aging? You're aging. You're really not anti-aging, but is it adding years to your life? Is it reversing, or is it just making you feel good right in the here and now?
Very good question. And I wish we knew an absolute answer to
Right.
that. But I think, minimally, if we are decreasing morbidity, which is really just the dysfunction, disease, et cetera, in our lives, even if we don't add a single year onto our lives, if we are feeling good and able to do the things that we want to do, I think that that's a win. That
Mhm.
has to be a win instead of everybody ending up on 10 to 25 different medications where they feel lousy for the last 20, 30, 40 years of their lives. I do think that there are absolutely some true anti-aging things out there. I can't think of a better word than that, but there are interesting discoveries in science. There's something called rapamycin that came from Easter Island, and looking at that mammalian rapamycin pathway is, I love it. It's just so interesting. And I think maybe our children or our children's children may have some really great opportunities to increase the length of their lives and live it well. But we'll see. Things move fast. Things move fast. So I don't know if I buy into all of it yet, but we absolutely, I think, can at least live better and
Yeah.
probably longer.
So when you are pursuing your continuing ed, which we're all required to do in our respective professions, what's the buzz now in pharmacology?
Oh my goodness. I would say the biggies are certainly opioids and opioid use disorder.
Okay.
Trying to monitor patients and trying to, just from a pharmacy perspective, there's a lot there as well, but also helping people get into programs, for treatment. Certainly the GLP-1 receptor agonists, the Ozempic, the Wegovy, the Mounjaro, the Zepbound, and there's another one that will be coming from the same company that makes the tirzepatide. It's called retagrutide, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. That one's going to be amazing too. Just, again, I'm not saying everybody needs to be on them, but the science there and why it's a really kind of an interesting agent. What else? There's always cardiology.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read kind of the new lipid guidelines in the past couple of weeks and how they're being monitored. That is a win. That is a win from a functional cardiology perspective. And those are, some of the biggies.
So that's the other thing that I wanted to ask you before we get into the next section is I was told by my nephew's an oncologist, and he said every person over 60 should be on a statin, whether or not you have high cholesterol. Then I hear statins are really bad for you. You shouldn't take them. Then I hear they cause all kinds of muscle problems. But yet it is the miracle drug to get cholesterol down in your body. So how do how do you balance all that?
Oh, we could do a 2-hour discussion on
Yes.
this.
And we will. We'll
Yeah.
plan on that.
It's a good
Yeah.
topic. It's a
Yeah.
good topic.
Yeah.
So I think where some of the confusion comes in for both patients and practitioners is that we're a little short-sighted in how we evaluate cholesterol. So, for instance, our LDL, that low density lipoprotein, our quote unquote bad cholesterol is the one thing that we tend to target the most. Certainly, we need to worry about triglycerides that are too high. That is a metabolic issue. And then our good cholesterol that's too low. And there really are not good drug remedies for that. But I think where we fall short is that we are looking at kind of a single number with LDL and then a total cholesterol, and that's it. And we put everybody with a high LDL on statins.
Mhm.
Everybody with a high LDL probably doesn't need to be on statins. We need to look at other markers, ApoB, lipoprotein little a, coronary calcium score, and the newer recommendations that just came out within the past few weeks are suggesting that. So hopefully we can get insurance to pay for them. I think the comment that your nephew made is well received in my brain simply because there's some data to suggest that particularly rosuvastatin, which is brand name Crestor, has an anti-inflammatory mechanism as well as not just, lowering the cholesterol. It's kind of a multi-mechanism drug. And of all the statins, I think it is the best one from a tolerability perspective as well as an outcome perspective. So it's a tough question. I have a couple of friends that are, recovering from cancer or are in remission now, that their practitioners have put them on rosuvastatin as well as a GLP-1. One of them's on Ozempic. Know another one on Mounjaro as part of their functional, holistic cancer treatment plan. And they are
Interesting.
also taking immunotherapy, traditional Western medicine. So again, it's really looking at patients from a whole organism perspective. So, do I think everybody over 60 needs to be on a statin? I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I certainly respect the opinion. And, how about this? there's a number that came out several months ago that said, maybe close to a year, that said 6.73% of people in the United States across all age groups are metabolically healthy.
Wow, that's low. Oh my
6.734%.
goodness. Wow.
It's terrifying and depressing.
Yeah.
So for if, that being a true number, epidemiologic survey, probably everybody over 60 needs to be on a statin.
Yeah.
But we can't use population statistics for every single decision. We need to look at individual patients as well.
And I love what you said about making sure insurance is covering this because we don't want wellness to be a luxury item that,
And it is. It
it
currently
is.
still is.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So you brought my attention to a product that, and again, I normally truly don't endorse products. I try to stay away from it, but the Prism. Tracey said to me at the conference, "Come and put your finger on this. This is going to talk about your antioxidant." And I said, "Oh," I took to it. I was like, "Okay, I'll try." I don't really try gadgets a lot too, but tell us about this. It could read your wellness status on a cellular level.
So when I really got into I'm going to get off my medication if I can,
Mhm.
and I will also give the disclaimer. My goal is never to say to somebody, "We're going to get you off all your medication,"
Mhm.
because that might not happen, and that's a wonderful thing to hope for, but that isn't necessarily always the end point, or it shouldn't be, because it might not be attainable. But we, want to get people feeling better. How do we do that? How many things have we talked about here today? So many different things. Where does one start? So years ago, I have a physician friend that was using one of these antioxidant scanners, and he said, "Let me scan you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I lecture with him. He's one of my best friends. And I sort of rolled my eyes, similar to the way you suggested, when you
Yeah.
see new gizmos and gadgets. So, anyhow, I scanned and I failed. I failed, meaning I was in the red number, which means that I had very low antioxidant numbers. And I was taking over $400 of high-end supplements, but I was on all my medication. I felt terrible. I looked terrible. So I was like, let me do some research on this. And I learned it was from the National Institutes of Health that scanning for antioxidants is a real thing. And it was being developed for cancer and macular degeneration. So, anyhow, I started to just sort of test different supplements and ways of eating to see if I could increase my number. In the end, I realized this is a true thing. And when I really understood that it is measuring nutrition and wellness from a cellular level, and it's the symphony, right? What's happening on the inside shows on the outside. I realized that I was going to use it as a behavior modification tool in me. Just think of it like an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch, a continuous glucose monitor that people use whether or not they have diabetes, all these different gadgets that we have. And we don't want to hyper focus, we just want to do better. So it's, the greatest little gadget. It's small. I'll just show you the size of a hockey puck or
Mhm.
smaller.
Yeah.
And you just scan your finger, it uses light, bounces off a cell, and shows you your carotenoid levels, which are a marker of kind of your average fruits and vegetables over 2 months. So it's just one other thing, that can be added to somebody's wellness journey.
I think it's great. I think that, I'm a gadget. Like I said, I'm skeptical when they make broad claims,
Yes.
but I love that it can help you. And I tell everybody if you're using like the electronic impedance scale, an Apple Watch, an Oura Ring, the Prism, is that use it as a tool to enhance your wellness. Don't use it as an end all or be all or get on the scale and go, "Oh, my body fat percentage is so high, I'm fat." Don't look at it like that. It's the big
Right.
picture of, are you taking care of yourself and are you seeing improvement in the numbers? So
Yeah.
it's, and I do envision a world that there's going to come a time we're all going to have that very readily accessible to us. And it's helpful for sure. I
Oh, yes,
can't
yes.
say enough about that.
It's
So,
easy to hyper focus on them. That's not
mhm,
what we should do. We should use it as
right,
just a challenge,
right.
to ourselves to do better.
Absolutely. Dr. Tracey Offerdahl, I want to thank you so much for joining me here at It's Okay to Be Old. And for more information about Dr. Offerdahl and her work, what's the best way to reach you?
You can email me for sure at drofferdahl@gmail.com. It's just DR and then my last name, which you can see on the screen up there at gmail.com.
Yeah,
And yeah, I'd be, happy to chat with you and give you any information. I want everybody to feel as good as I feel at this
fantastic.
ripe old age.
And lastly, Tracy, I want to ask you, what do you like about getting older?
I like the freedom and the free. I don't even mean time. I'm a very busy lady, as I know
Mhm.
you are, and I like to stay busy. I like the freedom of saying to myself, I'll use Barbie. I'm enough. I
Yeah,
don't need to be a size six,
right.
to be enough in my own eyes or anybody else's eyes. And I think, with maturity comes the realization that there are many more things in life that are important. I have two grown
Absolutely.
daughters, and I love looking at how wonderful they are and just, wonderful women and have hearts for the least among us. And it's just freeing. I think aging is
Fantastic.
freeing.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank the audience for listening to It's Okay to Be Old. Please subscribe to my channel, It's Okay to Be Old, for more engaging discussions about aging well and living well. Look for us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Insta as well. And for feedback, topic suggestions, and anything else you want to talk to me about, you can reach me at patriciagreenberg.com. Tracey, again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been
Thank you.
fantastic. And I look forward to more discussions.
Yes, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us here at It's Okay to Be Old. And for more information about me and the show, you can reach out at www.patriciagreenberg.com. Thanks again and stay well and stay safe.